It's September, so it must be Goodwood revival time. I didn't think the revival was actually going to happen this year because Gary Pearson had sent me a single text message earlier in March simply saying, "Do you fancy doing it in a 250 LM?" And that couldn't possibly be real. Could it? But it was. The car is not a completely original LM, it has some original bits, but it is an exact recreation. We managed a small amount of testing the week before and knew that despite having possibly the best chassis on the grid, we'd struggle against some of the better developed machinery on the grid. But who cares? Goodwood is the best weekend of the year, and the chance to drive Ferrari's gorgeous mid-engine racer was more than enough for me. It's Saturday morning, the sun's out. Yesterday was biblical rain. This is the second qualifying session for the RAC TT in which I'm driving a 250 LM Ferrari. Yeah, I'm pinching myself, so let's see what happens. Yesterday in the rain, Gary Pearson stuck it second out of all the cars, which I think is probably a bit above par for us. Today in the dry, the power of the Cobras might come through, so I'm hoping top 10. It might be a bit outside that, but anything in the top 10, if the race is a bit inclement tomorrow, we are in with a chance. Goodwood is blooming as usual. This was a 30-minute session, and being dry would determine the grid positions. Gary went first and only just slipped out of the top 10 at the end. I jumped in and got stuck in a queue of cars. Rather a nice queue of cars, as you can see. It took me a couple of laps to clear the two in front and get some space a set of time, whereupon one of the biggest talking points of the weekend occurred. Andy Newell in the beautiful 64 GTO tried to get past me into Woodcote just as I had passed a Corvette. He avoided the back of my car, for which I thank him, but ended up in the tyres. I don't like seeing beautiful machinery damaged, but the accusation that I weaved under braking is answered by this onboard shot. As you can see, I didn't move the wheel, and the fact that I was simply taking the same line I take every lap, and the data showed I braked at exactly the same point. If you don't brake there in a 250 LM, you end up in the grandstand, not something I want to do. I managed a 128 dead, which left us 15th out of 29 cars on the grid. The car was a peach, we just didn't have the power to match the Jags and the Cobras. So this is the 250 LM, a mid-engined racing coupe with a 3.3 litre 320 horsepower V12. It has double wishbones all round, a straight cut 5-speed gearbox and inboard rear disc brakes. It is gorgeous to drive, little understeer to begin with, but adjustable enough to allow the driver those delicious slides on the exit of each corner. The LM was the last Ferrari to win Le Mans in 1965. Come race day, the weather threatened and teased, and a decent shower 30 minutes before the start had us all grinning. So it is race time. We're in the holding paddock. We'll be going out in about 15 minutes. It's just rained, yes, but it's now just stopped raining and it's drying out really quickly. I think it's going to be a dry race, which is a great shame. If we have another sprinkle, I think we could surprise some people. But if we don't, I think we're gonna struggle a bit. But what a way to struggle! It's the most beautiful car. I can't wait to get in amongst it. So let's hope for a top 15 finish and a good beer afterwards. The holding paddock before the race is just fantastic. Not many places where David Richards ogles your racing car and Richard Atwood talks about what an LM was like to drive back in the day. Gary took the start and was immediately pushed onto the grass, but he's awesome in traffic though and fought straight back up to 12th. Then he had a top dice with the Lister Costume Coupe before pitting. I came back out 13th, managed to get past a few cars and finally had the chance to get a rhythm in the LM, which was about as good as driving gets. So here's a decent lap of Goodwood on board in a 250 LM. It was all going swimmingly, up to 9th, when I was following a Cobra which had to brake hard into no name, and all I could do to avoid it was spin. This was a full Code Brown moment. But we recovered, got back past a few more cars and crossed the line eventually in 7th. If you'd offered us 7th the week before, we'd have bitten your arm off. But for a man who never thought he'd see a 250 LM, let alone sit in one or slide one around Goodwood, it was a fantastic result.
Wow, what a car! What a car. That's the best 7th place ever. Yeah. It's just a joy. Bit of grunt, she's a weapon, isn't she?
I've had it rained.
We would have been, it's not free.